Welcome to the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast, where we aim to help fellow veterinary rehab therapists increase their knowledge and elevate their practice. I'm Megan Kelly.
And I'm Anae Lloyd. Together, we bring you the latest insights, research, and information in the field of veterinary rehabilitation.
This podcast is brought to you by Onlinepethealth, a leading continuing education membership for veterinary rehabilitation therapists. With Onlinepethealth, you'll have access to a wide range of online resources to help you stay up to date with the latest techniques, advances, and trends in the industry.
Our podcast features in-depth conversations with leading experts in veterinary rehabilitation. They share their own experiences and knowledge to help you improve your practice. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out in the field, our goal is to provide you with the tools and the insights you need to succeed.
So join us as we explore the exciting world of veterinary rehabilitation and help you take your practice to the next level. Hey veterinary habbers! Now 2023 was definitely the year of AI. So AI stands for artificial intelligence. We have seen AI coming through in many different industries, and the veterinary world is no different. So ChatGPT, all these different platforms where we can use artificial intelligence to help us in creating content, in writing emails, so many different things. In some cases, AI has even been known to enhance diagnostic accuracy, helping veterinary professionals to pinpoint health issues with greater precision and speed. Now, I don't know about you, but when new things like this come out, I would definitely say that I'm not one of those first early adopters. I'm one of those people that initially resist the change and then eventually realize, I need to embrace this or I'm going to be left behind. So we all need to be thinking about how can we keep up with AI technology, how can we use it in our practices, and how by using it could this lead to more effective and timely treatments for our patients, ultimately overall improving our patient care. In addition to improving our patient care, AI can also help streamline administrative tasks such as appointment scheduling, record keeping, freeing up valuable time for us to be able to focus on more hands-on care and our clients' interactions. Now, there are some exciting things also happening in the research world with AI, and they're looking at things like helping to potentially analyze data by identifying patterns and trends. So many different ways that AI can be incorporated and used by our veterinary habits. It's up to each and every one of us, though, to keep up to date. So I decided to get Shawn Wilkie back on the podcast to chat about advances in AI. Now, Shawn is the creator of Talkatoo, which is a veterinary dictation software. Before we head over to my chat with Shawn, a quick reminder that we have some free webinars available to the veterinary habit community. These will be changing shortly, so if you've not had a chance to check them out, please go to onlinepethealth.com/free. The webinars for small animals is Diagnosis and Non-Surgical Management of Digit Injuries, lectured by Jennifer Brown. And out of interest, we have 218 hours of webinars available in our small animal membership. The hydrotherapy webinar is gait assessment for canine hydrotherapy patients, and this is lectured by Amy Kings. In our hydrotherapy membership, we have 109 hours of specific hydrotherapy webinars. And then our equine membership, the free webinar is How Tack Influences Movement by Lauren Birkbeck, and there are 152 hours of equine specific vet rehab webinars in that membership. So over to Shawn. Hey, Shawn, thank you so much for joining me again.
Meg, it's so good to be back with you. It seems like it was just yesterday, but I think it was about 3 years ago.
I think it was, yeah. We were chatting about AI. You were talking to us about your software, Talkatoo. How's that going?
That's going great. It's been fascinating. We were just getting started when we spoke 3 years ago. And, we're thousands of customers later. I think we're close to 5,000 users of Talkatoo on a daily basis. And it's being used all around the world. And we've built a bunch of other tools. So it's been one hell of a ride, kind of trial by fire, but it's been a lot of fun.
For the listeners that don't know about Talkatoo, won't you just explain to them exactly what it is?
Yeah, sure. And it's probably a great place to start. So, we started in 2019 really as a speech to text company. That was our shtick at the time. We wanted to make speech to text more available to veterinary professionals. So, we all text on our phone. We wanted to bring that technology to anywheres that a veterinary professional might need to type. So be it on a Mac computer, a Windows computer, an Android device, a Windows device, an iPhone, any tablet. We wanted to bring like a unified experience to those devices and offer people the ability to have the same experience regardless of where they needed to input text. So whether that's into your practice management system or to type an email using your voice, Talkatoo really powers all of those things, and just for veterinary professionals. So we are very, very focused on this industry. We haven't gone into any other industries, and we've matured and changed quite a bit. As a software as a service company, we needed to kind of mold our product to fit our users. And just last month, we launched a new product, which is called Verified by Talkatoo. And it's kind of exactly what a lot of our users told us they wanted. And so imagine you're a veterinary professional, which you are. So it's kind of easy for you to do this, I hope, Meg. And you struggle to stay ahead of your clinical records, documentation, client communication, because you're busy. You're busy putting your hands on animals and being a rehabber. We've developed a product that lives on your smartphone. It's Talkatoo on your smartphone. Yeah, so imagine you see a pet, start your day, you see a pet, you speak an audio note into the Talkatoo software on your phone, you see another pet, you speak another audio note, and you do that all day long until you see the last pet of the day, and then you speak the last audio note, and then you're done. You don't have to do any documentation at that point. What happens is it goes through our powerful AI, gets looked at by a human, a veterinary professional with 5 years experience at least, and then we log into your practice management software and make sure you have better records than you've ever had in your entire life. And so we're kind of trying to crack this nut of clinical documentation, and creating this offer Verified by Talkatoo has allowed us to kind of completely remove that burden from veterinary professionals' life altogether. And so that's what we've become, Meg. We've got a couple of products now, and this latest is really kind of fascinating.
Yeah. So when they log in, do they automatically upload everything and just make sure that it's in the right place? And so are they actually physically doing it, or does it happen automatically?
So in some cases, they are logging in and doing physically. So we haven't requested people to get off their old practice management system. They can be on whatever system they want, as long as we can get some more secure remote access into their system. We will do their records as if we were them, but only way better. The way that we like to tell people to think about the offering is it's better than perfect. Like if our speech recognition was to recognize everything without a single error, that would be one thing. But people actually, when they dictate, often want something other than what they dictated. So we'll correct sentence structure, we'll clean up the formatting, we'll make the records, smooth, readable, and put them exactly where they need to go, so that professional doesn't have to be burdened by this task of medical records and feeling as if they went to school to be a data entry clerk instead of a veterinarian.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, that's like a huge problem, right? Like at the end of the day, and I must say for us vet rehabbers especially, like we are always using our hands, sometimes, if I think back to when I was doing veterinary consulting, there would be times where, you would treat the animal and then you might have a nurse who was doing something, and then you got a bit of time to go and write the notes out while the nurse was doing the bandage or whatever. It's not the case with veterinary rehabbers, vet rehabbers. We are like hands-on all the time. And I can remember, back in the day when I was seeing 13 patients, 15 patients a day, and like we were doing like 45-minute consultations. But what would happen is, like, literally I'd be finished the first one and the second client was waiting there. So as I open the door, they're waiting now, and I still have to tidy up my room and get everything ready again, and then write all the notes very, very quickly. And then what you'll do is you'll think, oh, like, I'll remember that, so I'll write that later. And then you don't, right? You come to the end of the day and you're like, I've just seen like 8 cranial cruciate ligament ruptures and 4 hip dysplasias. And I don't remember which one was which, and which range of motion, and what the limb circumference was. So I absolutely love that. That is something that I definitely think the vet rehabbers will jump onto. Most of them, I think most of them are still actually doing written notes. They're not even typing.
Yeah.
A lot of them are just, it's because it's easier, because you can actually have it right there, and then you might be holding a laser on the dog and then you quickly write. It's easier than trying to type with one hand. It's easier to write with one hand.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we have every different use case you can imagine. We have large animal veterinarians, because our software also works offline. So you don't have to have internet. You can be in a bad coverage area. And there's two flavors of it. One has the humans that look at it and make sure that it's perfect. And another one is just, it gives you a transcript. So if you're mobile and you just don't have the ability, you can record the entire session and it's all going to be transcribed when you're done. So, you kind of finish that exercise and look back and you've got these, very detailed notes that you've dictated while you're doing that exam. So it's been pretty fascinating. And, we're really focused on saving veterinary professionals time in their day. And this is just one of those things that allows us to do it.
Yeah, love it. So obviously, like in November last year, when ChatGPT came on, like I just feel like since then, things have just gone crazy with AI. It's like all these people were creating AI tools and softwares, and they were just keeping quiet about it. And then one person came out and said, this is what we've done. And then everyone was like, we got to go quickly and just release ours. And it's just been like this massive influx of everything AI. And there's this tendency, I think, especially with us vets and vet rehabbers, because most of us, let's be honest, are not very tech savvy. We're spending a lot of the day actually treating animals and less time actually working on a computer. So I think there's this tendency for us to try and just stay away from it and think like, oh, I don't know how to do that. But it's got to the point now where you actually have to start looking at all the AI tools and softwares out there, because if you don't, you're going to be left behind. So what are the things that you would recommend? Obviously your tools and softwares that you're creating are helping vets already be more productive. Are there any other AI tools that you can recommend to help in their productivity and day-to-day running of their practice?
Yeah, for sure. So, I have this very luxurious position, as do you, of knowing hundreds of people all around the world, particularly in veterinary medicine, and then kind of double particularly that are kind of at the heart of innovation. So because we started this podcast, the Veterinary Innovation Podcast, which you've been on, which is a while ago now, holy God, time goes by quick. We've had all kinds of conversations, and there's a lot of really interesting companies, but I think there's so many more that are bubbling quietly underneath the surface. And the reason I think that, Meg, is because I know a few. And I know a few that are building apps right now. They're testing them. They're not out in the public domain. And I think part of the problem is exactly what you just mentioned, is veterinary medicine, we're slow to move, we're slow to adopt things. And so you have these people that have built software that are really trying their hardest to make sure that if they release something, it has some value that's instantly seen by the veterinary professional. But there's a bunch, and some of them are, could even be considered like direct competitors to my company, but I think that's lovely. So I'll rifle off a few that I think are worth looking at, and just maybe a little description of what they do. There's a company out of Canada called ScribeNote, and they're basically taking they built a kind of a light practice management software to allow you to record audio and then to automatically format it into a SOAP note. Couple of young founders from the University of Waterloo, really, really bright people, and they've built something that's really unique and neat. Another one, Radimal. So it's an AI company that does radiographic interpretation. A really neat story, been on the podcast. The story is software developer brother extraordinaire. His brother is a veterinary radiologist. He goes for dinner, takes a 4-hour drive, only to watch his brother read radiographs until 10 p.m. at night, when all the restaurants closed. And he said, there's got to be a better way. So they've built something really unique, really interesting, with a beautiful user interface, which I think is not that common in veterinary medicine. So that's pretty interesting. And then you've got a bunch under the surface. You've got companies like Digital. They're building AI underneath the surface into their app and into their pet parent app. And you've got a bunch of other, companies that have been around for a while trying to figure out where their place in AI is, not dissimilar to Talkatoo. We're building our own LLM, partnered with a couple of industry partners to be able to kind of provide non-hallucination orientated predictive information for veterinary professionals. Think of it as almost like a co-pilot for your veterinary practice, kind of, that's already on your desktop. It's just fascinating, what these large language models have done, which is just a bunch of data, organized, a bunch of organized data. What they've done is allow companies like Talkatoo to, for the first time ever, get closer to exactly what people want, even if it's not what they say, which is wild. So imagine just dictating something about a pet that you just saw, and you dictate it and you read it and you're like, oh my God, if I put this in a medical record, I'm going to sound like a complete dodo head. And then you press a button and then it passes that utterance, that dictation, through a large language model. And what comes out the other end is something beautiful that when you look at it, you're like, geez, this sounds like the professor that I had in college wrote this. And it's perfect. And so that's the type of stuff that gets me super duper excited, because this ability never existed before. And it's not just, for dictation, it's for, predicting patterns, sequencing, DNA, you name it. This thing, this artificial intelligence, and which has been totally cracked by ChatGPT, has really paved the way to do things that were never really possible before. And I think that's just so fascinating, especially if you look at an industry like veterinary medicine, where there is so many problems that need to be solved, and there's not enough veterinary professionals to solve the problem.
Yeah. So AI potentially, can help us a lot, if it's going to help us. I see, especially like for Talkatoo, to be able to help veterinary professionals transition from one consult to another super quick. You're going to be able to fit in maybe 3 or 4 more consults in a day. And if every vet in the practice can do that, that's sometimes like a whole vet's job, right? In one day, if you've got 5 vets. So yeah, there's so many ways in which I can see it helping, especially time-based, but yeah, maybe with diagnosis. I know that Companion Animal Health, they have got a new, it looks like one of those scanners that you have at when you go shopping, and then they scan the barcode. I think it's called H Vista, and it's got a big light, and you shine it over and you scan over tumors, and it's got some, I don't understand all of it, you probably do, but there's some type of AI algorithm that basically predicts whatever comes back with regards to the heat and the flow and blood flow, and it can give like a percentage predictability whether a tumor is cancerous or not, which is amazing. Because if you think about it, how often you get these dogs with all these lumps and bumps, and then you sit there. I remember this is what we used to do, right? You sit there and then you put a needle in the one and you take an aspirate and you put it on the slide and then you smear it, and then you go and you dye it, and then you go under this thing and you look, and then there's no cells, and then you go back and you do it again, and for every single one. And now you've got this tool, you can just scan straight over, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
I remember, Meg, it was a decade ago or 20 years ago or something, when Google first came out with the AI for image recognition. And it was used a lot in the early days for like mushroom recognition and plant recognition, and scan a picture of the leaf, and with a high level of accuracy, it's going to go through the database and come back with all of these potential matches. And so what these large language models have allowed us to do is kind of like 3-dimensional computation when it comes to things that have many, 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 many more variables, things that are much, much, much more complex than just a leaf. Maybe there's heat, maybe there's size, maybe there's distance, maybe there's all of these things. And so we're in a place now that we are hunting for what we can fit with this new data analysis tool that we have, and there's some obvious, like ChatGPT, what it showed people. And God, if you haven't used ChatGPT, and you're a vet professional, it's not complicated. You go to a website, just type it in Google, go to a website, and then just ask it something and just stand back and watch what happens. But content creation, like every vet rehabber, every veterinarian, if you want some content for your website, go get it for free. Have ChatGPT write it, tell it what you want. It'll write you a 500-word article, a 5,000-page article, and it will do it in 5 minutes, or less. It's just absolutely fascinating.
And what's the difference between Bard and ChatGPT? So what I've learned is that Bard is more sort of up to date and it's more live, basically, like what is actually currently on the internet. So when you ask ChatGPT things, I think it's like back to 2021. Yeah. So if there's anything that's been on the internet or something new after that, then it might not know about it. And you might get some information that's incorrect. So you always got to check it. Bard, on the other hand, is live, right? So it's like actually checking the internet at that very moment to see what it can bring. So, you can search for things like, I actually find myself now going to Bard instead of to Google to ask a question. Normally you would ask something and then you go into Google and then it comes up and then you can see all the questions and then you go, look, the question that you're looking for, drop down, is the answer there? And then sometimes you'll get half the answer and then you got to look at more and then click on websites. Now you don't have to do that. You just go to Bard, ask the question, and it basically tells you what the answer is.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, back 6 months ago, like Google's search engine disappeared from my life in probably 50% of the times I would go to find information. Because unlike a Google search where you're presented with prioritized ads based upon bidding platform and a bunch of other data that we don't really want anything to do with, now it's like you've asked a person that knows everything that's in Google. And you get this nice paragraph. And if it's too long, you can say, I want a shorter answer, like, please be more specific. And so you can really interact with these AI systems much more like you would with a human. And that's why ChatGPT was so revolutionary, because it was just like chatting with a human. Instead of, going to the internet and finding a page, you're chatting with a human. So the differences between the two, I think fundamentally it's different architecture. They're both large language models. Google has been an AI company for a very, very long time. It was really interesting to see what happened with this kind of release of OpenAI, where everybody was like, is Google asleep? Like, I thought this was Google's thing, and now they're nowhere to be found. But I think Google has a lot of potential to kind of potentially even outshine ChatGPT. The difference that you brought up is a huge one. It's streaming, it's live data. They've categorized and have indexed the internet and do that every single day, multiple times a day. ChatGPT indexed the internet for GPT-4 back in 21, and it took a really, really long time because they don't have the infrastructure that Google has. So there's some unique, call it, advantages that Google brings, but I think ChatGPT will forever be have a place in history, because what they did is they developed something that maybe wasn't even ready for prime time. And they're like, let's just release this. And the rate at which people consumed it and tried it outpaced every other software that ever existed from a speed to market, which is just fascinating. So I think the answer is complicated one, Meg, but they both have their own infrastructure. They both have their own algorithms. Google's attached to live data. ChatGPT today is not. And I don't know that they will be anytime soon, just because of the complexities surrounding that indexing of all of that data that's on the internet. But they're both definitely fighting for the hearts and minds of everybody out there that plays around with this technology. And I still think ChatGPT has a leg up because of how quickly people use their software. That usage of the initial tool is also valuable because they feed that back into their future algorithms, and it is a competitive advantage. People using your tool gives you the ability to make it better.
And it also remembers, right, every time you log in and you do things, it remembers what you're talking about. Because I remember one of the things in the very beginning, I would ask it to write things and I'd go like, wow, that doesn't really sound like me at all. And and I've learned over the last year or so, or 6 months, a few little tips and tricks on how to get ChatGPT or Bard to sound like you. And I must say, I find Bard is a little bit better for if you're wanting to write emails and things like that. And ChatGPT is probably better if you're wanting to write blogs and things that are more sort of factual. That's just in my experience. And I don't find Bard is able, and maybe I just haven't spent enough time on Bard, but to actually speak like me. So when I use ChatGPT, I'll say, for example, and this is a tip for the listeners out there, if you're a veterinary rehabilitation therapist, you can say to ChatGPT, all right, I'd like you to write a blog for me on hip dysplasia. You are a world-class veterinary physiotherapist, right? And you are writing this blog for, and you say who it's for, and this is the problem that they have. Make sure that you address this problem and give them tips and advice. You can do some in bullet form. You can go into a lot of detail, and then you say, make this blog sound like me. All right. I just say simple, easy to understand language, because that's how I sound, when I don't use, and when it comes now, it sounds exactly like me. And I'm like, wow, you got it. But Bod, he doesn't get it right with me. Like I read it
Yeah.
and I'm like, no, I'm
And
going
it's,
back
I
to
mean,
ChatGPT.
it's just fascinating because I have a friend, he's a journalist for a well respected Canadian publication. He's been doing it for years and years and years. He took 100 of his articles, put them into a prompt. A prompt is what you tell the LLM to do, and then said, write an article about this thing as if you're me. And if you had been reading his column for years and years and years, you probably wouldn't be able to distinguish which article was written by the AI and which was written by him. And so that brings up all kinds of like interesting kind of ideas and topics for debate. But the most interesting thing, we have an astrophysicist that works for us, and he spends all of his days now thinking about how to ask the AI questions, which is just crazy to me. You have somebody that's uber smart, and their day is spent engineering how to ask questions. Imagine that. It's just bizarre.
Yeah, it is. And another thing that I also learned to do is, if you want ChatGPT to create a whole lot of content for you, so it could be like content for your website, sales page, maybe emails, and you can say to ChatGPT, ask me 20 questions. So I'm going to be asking you to create a whole lot of content for me. Ask me 20 questions about my veterinary rehabilitation practice that will help you to be able to create this content. And then ChatGPT comes with like 20 questions. And then you just sit there and you go one, and you answer the question. And then you say, okay, now I need you to create this. And it's got all the information and it just fills it all in.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and you bring up a really good segue into, what does this mean to veterinary medicine, right? So imagine, 2 a.m. in a morning, Saturday morning, you're the only vet awake for miles, but you have a computer and you have the internet. So you can literally go to ChatGPT, and knowing that it's indexed the entire internet, the corpus of the internet, which is a massive amount of data, and say, I have this unique case. These are what I found out so far. This is what the lab blood work says. This is what these labs say. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I think there's a very important disclaimer with what I'm about to say. It's going to tell you something. It might not be right, because one of the things that these LLMs do right now is they're generative models. So they generate content, they generate responses, and they have a tendency to hallucinate, especially if you don't tell it not to. So you can actually build that into your question. Don't hallucinate. Don't tell me anything that you can't cite in a medical reference white paper or whatever. But if you're all alone on an island, 2 a.m. in the morning, and you're the only vet for miles, you can log in and give ChatGPT all of the findings that you have, and you can at least get a second opinion. And it might not be right, but it might be right enough to point you in the direction of treatment that you might not have thought about, which there's all kinds of cases of, veterinarians, because diagnostic didn't go right and a pet, went to another vet, and then ChatGPT was able to find the solution. There's examples of this, but there's going to be many the other way as well. And I think, the pragmatic kind of learning styles of veterinarians can be very helpful, because you can read the content and you'll be able to call BS on it if it's not true. But it might just give you a spark that helps you do something that you might not have been able to do if you didn't have the ability to ask. And that's, I think, fascinating.
Yeah, I love it. I think it really helps, especially when you're in those moments of tunnel vision, right? And it can just pull you straight out. Shawn, this has been an awesome topic to chat about. Thank you so much. If our listeners want to get hold of you, to ask you any questions or to find out about Talkatoo, where should they go?
The best thing to do is LinkedIn. It's like the easiest way to get me. I'm on there all the time. I love that platform. Go to talkatoo.com and reach out if I can help with anything. I'm just so fascinated. I would say 50% of my day now is, LLMs, ChatGPT, Bard, all of these sources of large language models are so fascinating to me. So I'm happy to talk to anybody about it at any time.
Awesome. Thanks, Shawn. It's been great chatting. Thanks for your time.
Always is. Thanks, Meg.
Bye. If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time I load a new podcast. I'm here every week talking to vet rehab therapists from all over the world about all things vet rehab. Don't forget to bookmark the next Vet Rehab Summit on Saturday, the 31st of August, 2024. Come and be a part of the world's largest online veterinary rehabilitation conference created specifically for you, the vet rehabber community. Onlinepethealth members get VIP complimentary access to the Vet Rehab Summit. For more information about continuing education for vet rehabbers, you can go to onlinepethealth.com.